Hey there everybody, Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations, continuing on with another video of our world building series, specifically working with pack level instances in PCG. So, um, last we ended, as I mentioned to you, I wanted to figure out how to take care of the whole instance and hierarchical instance issue. From what I've been able to research, it's not a huge deal, but if you're like me and you want them all to be the same, which if I click on this, you'll see they aren't, and that's okay. That's just for some reason how it works. Um, but I went ahead and got everything together that I could, and if you want to try to find a way around it, you can. You can easily just right click, come down here to level, and break. So you can break it if you really want to, and try again. But I'm going to be okay with it. So I now have this large temple. I do have a normal sized one as well. I'm going to delete number 2 here because it's irrelevant. There we go. So if I put this bad boy in here, well, first I need to set some here. Remove this floor. It's not needed. Exit. Yes. Alrighty. Anyways, so I figured it would be good to have 2 separate ones. That way I can decide whether I want it to be a humble one or a grand one. As you can see here, not as grand as it once was, but that's okay. So now that we have this, we are going to start building the graph so that everything can be set up exactly how we want. And don't worry, it's real simple. We're going to get it done in this in this one video, and then we can play around with things. So let's see here. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go into my main level. I'm just going to save everything. It's fine. So that we can get everything set up how we like it. Map generated warnings. What warnings? Spatially loaded actor. Referencing non-spatially loaded actor. We'll worry about that later because I don't know how it's referencing it, but we will figure it out. All right. So, we got a few things that we need to do. Oh, and now I know exactly what it's talking about right here. That's fine. We'll worry about it in the future. So, we have this old one right here, and in order to replace it, I can easily just replace it, but we should first create a few things so that you guys can follow along. And that's how we come here to this. So the first step that we need is you need to create a struct. I called mine tag info. You can call it whatever you want, but create a struct and put it where you originally had it. Sorry. Let's go ahead and keep this small for now so it's easier to see. You can see the first one I have is tag and it's of type name. Then ratio, which is of type float, and seed, which is of type integer. Now, once you have these made and saved, you're going to want to create another struct that we are going to want to create 2 things with it. PCG data asset. Here, let me see if I can make that any bigger. Of course, it's not going to want to be bigger. So you want to get PCG data asset type. Obviously, I named mine PCG data asset. And then tags is, and I created an array of the tag struct that we just made. So whatever you chose to name it, make sure you make an array of it. And there we go. We have that set up. The next thing we need to do is, of course, need to create a blueprint of the primary data asset. So if you don't remember how to do that, you would, here, let me just go to this, right click, blueprint class, and all classes type in primary, and there's the primary data asset. You will then create it. In the data asset, all you're going to do is create a PCG asset info from the PCG asset info struct that we just made, that second struct. There's no array in this one. You can, if you want to randomize things. For simplicity's sake, on this instance, I decided to go against it. May change that in the future. Once you've done that, right-click again, search for data asset, which of course is in the miscellaneous section, and then find the data asset that you just named. So if you're wanting to name things exactly as I did, you can see them right here, the BP, PCG, assets, data asset, and then I named my data asset DA Ancient Temple. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and open it, and you're going to see a PCG data asset. You may be wondering, well, how do I make it? Fantastic question. We are going to go ahead and do that right now. So let's go ahead and search for this. So I'm going to do it with my new temple. You're going to right click on the level. I think it's the level. Yes, on the level, right click on it, and then go down to asset actions and scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says create PCG assets from level. You can name it whatever you would like. I'm just going to keep it how it named it. You can hit save. And then you go ahead and place it. So mine, we're going to obviously not see a complete change. Probably because it's looking for the tags, which is fine. We will go ahead and get that taken care of. So first things first, now that we have the information, we need to go ahead and create. I don't know how I have two of them open here, but I do. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to close that. And these, because we don't need them. We now need to create the graphs. So I went ahead and I created, in my graph section, the PCG asset graphs. And there's going to be one subgraph. We're going to go ahead and start with the subgraph. And the subgraph, I named it filter tags loop. Open it up. So once you've created your PCG filters tags loop, I want you to go ahead and we need to go into the input section. And for the N, I changed the allowed types to point and made it required. And then I created a second input called tags. I made it of type loop. It's an attribute set. I don't have it as required, but it should be, so we're going to change that to required now. And then two more. This one I called it instance ratio control. You'll understand that in a minute. And then I made it a normal type and an attribute set. Didn't make it required because you don't absolutely need it. And then same thing with instance seed control. Normal, attribute set, pin status, normal. Now then, once we're done with that, the very first thing you're going to want to do is pull out of the N input and type in attribute filter. In the attribute filter, you're going to want to change the operator to an equal. You're going to check mark use constant threshold of type Boolean, and the bool value is true. Now, out of the tags section right here, you will pull out of it and get a delete attributes. You're going to want to keep only and then make it of type tags. Next thing you're going to want to do once you've done that is put it into the target attribute of your attribute filter. That was the easy part. Now you need to pull out of the inside filter and find a select points node. Then once that's done, in the output, I went ahead and changed it to point. You can keep it how it is if you want to. And then I plugged it into the out. Now that we're done with that stuff, let's move it out of the way. The next thing we want to do is out of the tags loop, pull out and get another delete attribute, and you're going to want to keep the ratio attribute. Then you're going to right click. You can just type in add, get an attribute maths operator, which will give you this. I kept it as last and last. And in the keep ratio, I put into A. And the instance ratio, that's not needed anymore now that I see that. We can mark this right there. Delete that. So yes, the instance ratio control, put that into B. I'm going to do this. Delete that. Sorry. All right. And once you have that add into, you have NA and NB filled, you're going to pull out and get a clamp. So type in clamp, you got clamp. I went ahead and then did create attribute twice, put a 0 and a 1 for min and max. That way our controls for the clamp of the ratio don't go below 0 or above 1. And then final, ratio final, right there. Then I put ratio final in the select point. So, hit the down arrow, find the ratio, place that in there. Now then for seed, because it doesn't matter if there's a max or a min, what you change it to. All we need is an add. And out of the tags loop, get a keep. You want to keep the seed. Put that in A, and then the instant seed control, put that in a B. And out of the output, I did a named reroute node for speed final. Place that right in there. So I made a couple changes. Wanted to make sure that it stayed. All right. So the next thing we are going to want to do is create the main graph. So this one I named PCG Asset Randomizer. You want to go ahead and open it up once you have it made. And the first thing we're going to want to do is create point grid. Let me go ahead and remove that. There we go. If we come over here, we should see it. There we go. That is what we're creating right there. So once you have this create point grid node, I made the extents 50, 50, 50, cell side 500, 500, 500, and then original component is what I chose. That's what I found that worked, so that's what I did. The next thing we're going to want to do is project this grid point onto the landscape. That way, no matter what, it's always on the landscape. And for that, obviously we need to get a get landscape data node. Once you have that completed, let's go ahead and show you what the difference is. As you can see now, it's sloped. Right now, it no matter what at this point, because of how I've created it, if I go up, it's going to stay on the landscape. But anyways, once we have that done, we want to get a transform point. And once we put that transform point in there, go ahead and leave it empty for a moment. We are now going to create the blueprint. So this blueprint that I've created, you are going to want to do it in blueprints, obviously. And I named it PCG asset. Let's go ahead and open her up. Viewport. The first thing you're going to want to do is create some variables. We're going to go over landscape patch later in the next episode. But here in PCG, you're going to want to have 4 variables. You're going to want them to be viewable, obviously. The first thing you're going to want is the data asset. So whatever you name the data asset, mine is PCG assets data asset. And then the next one is a float of instance ratio control. Followed by that is an integer named instance ratio seed control. And then finally, location offset, which is of type vector. Now, then once you have that made, you're going to come up here and hit add. And you're going to add a PCG. And directly within this PCG is where we're going to put the PCG asset randomizer that we just made. Because this one is going to pull directly from this blueprint. Now then, once we have done that, we will come back into here. Oh, not in there. We don't need that open anymore. And we will do a get actor property. Keep it at self. And obviously, I named it location offset, as I just said. With that created, put that into the offset min and offset max. I don't want randomization there. This allows us to raise our platforms as we need while keeping everything, well, the floor where we need it, while keeping the landscape exactly where it's at. Because once we have landscape patch, things can get slightly wonky. All right. So after we do that, the fun happens. The first thing we want to do, as you can see right now, it says error. I'm going to go ahead and put that back, because that annoyed me. Let's give it a second to do its thing. There we go. So now that's gone. The first thing we are going to want to do is you need to grab a load PCG. So if I type in load PCG data asset, that's what you want to do first thing. Now, after you do that, this is a little gotcha. You have to make sure you do it. Is even though we aren't going to be having this, hard coded, you need to select whichever one you just made.